Well, as ICE's Operation Metro Surge ramps up, so is the president's rhetoric about Minnesota's Somali community. At a campaign event in Pennsylvania yesterday, the president lashed out against Representative Ilhan Omar and Somalis who've settled in the country.
Remember, I said that to the senators, and we had a meeting, and I say, why is it we only take people from whole countries, right? Why can't we have some people from Norway, Sweden, but we always take people from Somalia, places that are a disaster, right? Filthy, dirty, disgusting.
Well, the president was referring to highly publicized remarks from an Oval Office meeting in his first term. Right now, the administration is targeting what it has called undocumented communities of Somalis, though most in Minnesota are citizens or have legal status. A Somali man who says he is a U.S. citizen with no criminal history is sharing video of ICE agents detaining him yesterday. And today, 20-year-old Mubashir, who isn't sharing his last name, stood next to the Minneapolis police chief and the mayor, both of whom denounced the agents' actions. The chief said he supports the job they have to lawfully arrest criminals, but calls the recent methods across the city questionable and unplanned, saying they could get someone killed.
Things could be well planned beforehand, both for the safety of law enforcement as well as for the safety of people in our community. And clearly, a use of resources that doesn't appear to be getting a return on investment.
Well, the Department of Homeland Security says it's arrested 8 Somalis across the city this month and amid alleged fraud allegations in Minnesota. In a social media post, DHS says among all of those arrested in the sweep is a gang member, a convicted child sex offender, and several people convicted of assault and domestic violence. ICE has not answered our questions about this latest detainment. Earlier today, Governor Walz sent a letter to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem urging her to review and respond to ICE agents detaining U.S. citizens. In the letter, Walz said he's received reports of people being chased, tackled, and handcuffed in their neighborhoods, even after offering to show ID. The governor is asking Noem to place any federal agents who acted unlawfully on administrative leave. Well, another point of contention in the communities where these raids are happening is the local police presence. The most recent example, last month's confrontation in St. Paul between officers and activists where chemical irritants were used. Here's Lou Raguse with more on the role local law enforcement plays in these raids.
Julie, there are city leaders across the state whose opinions on this range from wanting local police to stop federal agents or completely stay away from ICE operations to wanting them to assist. I sat down with the executive director of the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association to get his take on the role of local departments in these situations. A federal raid at a Minneapolis Mexican restaurant in June first sparked the larger conversation. What is the role of local police in a federal law enforcement operation that citizens believe involves ICE?
We have a sworn duty to keep the people of this community safe. That doesn't go through a political filter.
The Minneapolis Police Department has policies and directives against helping ICE with civil immigration enforcement, as does St. Paul Police.
Take your mask off!
But activists have criticized both departments.
Peppers, baby.
Most recently, St. Paul PD over using chemical irritant on protesters who blocked federal vehicles.
We've heard, though, that there are some cities that would like their police officers to stop ICE from doing their official duties, and that simply can't happen because it violates federal law.
Jeff Potts represents police chiefs across the state for the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association.
What is the role of local police departments at ICE raids?
We think has a role to play to keep the peace at one of those protests.
Potts says local police do not have a role in enforcing immigration law, but departments across the state have a responsibility to prevent and stop violence when tensions rise.
They're really there to help keep their community safe from people who might come into those protests and try and do harm to people or assault the federal officials, assault other protesters, and really local law enforcement should be there to help keep the peace.
With the amount of tension at these operations, Potts says local chiefs hope communities accept that their police will be present and disperse crowds if needed to prevent escalation of violence.
I think you can expect that law enforcement is going to try to control that situation by removing those people who are responsible for those types of activities.
Local leaders such as St. Paul Mayor-elect Collie Herr have called out ICE officials for identifying themselves as police, a move she hopes will maintain the trust if they stop doing that in local police, even if those bystanders don't trust the ICE agents, Julie.
Man, it's a really tricky line they're all walking, I think. And is there anything that he talked about outside of what you shared that surprised you or you think people would need to hear when they're at these rallies? Because I know protesters are being so-called trained.
Right. Well, I think his main message was that these chiefs and their officers want to stay out of the political aspects of these things. And I think there might be a little bit of an impression by some of the activists and so forth who believe that they want to be there and want to be helping ICE, but really the local departments, want
Just
to
doing their
enforce
job.
the laws that they're supposed to be enforcing. That's the message from Jeff Potts. Anyway.
All right, important one. Thank you, Lou.